listed on the video description. Get everything connected. So thank you for being patient. Hopefully it gave you enough time to grab your knitting, grab yourself a cup or like huge, look at this, as big as my face, mug of coffee, and you can join in the fun. Welcome everybody to BiCrafty Bootcamp lesson number 9. I cannot believe we're already at number 9. While you guys are joining in, please say hello in the chat. I'm going to pull it up right now so that way I can see everybody. You're probably noticing that I am all by myself today. Catherine had some family things going on. Chrissy has a full-time job during the day, and she fits me in between times of her life. So it's just me today, everybody. So hopefully I'll have a couple of my moderators here in the chat to help me out, providing links and doing all the things that we need. You guys know the drill. So many of you are here that often join me live. So talking and doing all this at the same time is actually quite difficult. So I'm doing the best I can to get the chat actually up for myself, because that's the one thing I can't get started before I go live. And I don't know why. It's just a funny thing, but that's okay. That's all right. Here we are, BiCrafty Bootcamp, lesson number 9. And I have all the chat. Oh, all of my favorites are here. I just love seeing you guys. Hello, Michelle De La Cruz and Jessica and Tia and Red and Peggy and Tammy and Michelle and Gail and Lisa and Bina and Laura and Suzanne and Alicia and Julie and Anita. Oh my goodness. So many of you are here. So excited to have you here. I am wondering, I want you guys all to tell me in the chat, or if you're catching this on the replay, leave a comment in the video. Tell me how your BiCrafty Bootcamp is going. How is your cowl looking so far? Here's mine. You guys can see I have the ribbing, the seed stitch. This was my extra credit. I don't even know what to call it. It's some slip stitch with some ribbing, like some knit and purl garters, sort of. It's not even garter. I don't even know what to call it. And then we have the double moss stitch. And now, if you have not looked yet, we're going to do a seersucker stitch, which is very close to the moss stitch and the double moss, or the double moss stitch and the seed stitch. Okay, so we're going to do the seersucker stitch, and we're also going to do the long slipped texture stitch, which is just a variation, honestly, on stockinette, in my opinion. So hopefully that'll be a little bit fun for you guys, especially since we're doing it in one color. If we were doing it in many colors, it would give a different look. But we're gonna have some fun with these 2 stitches, which will make it so that the body of our cowl now has 5 stitch patterns in it, which is perfect. And then we will wrap it up next week with some ribbing, and we're going to learn a different bind off. So I'm going to make sure that you're learning something a little bit different next week so that we can add on to stuff. And then, you guys, we get to move on to making a hat. And when we do the hat, we're going to work in the round again, which is great. We're going to learn some new stitches that are complements to these stitches, but we're also going to learn how to do increases and decreases. And once we learn how to do increases and decreases, we can move on and begin to work lace stitches, because that's all they are. They're a combination of increases and decreases to get the really cool lace look. So there's going to be a lot of fun happening. Not only that, at the end of our hat, we're going to be working on double pointed needles. So you're going to get an introduction to double pointed needles, which is a great way to begin to work with those. And then we can carry on. So many of you have now become knitters. So many of you are now BiCrafty. It is extremely exciting for me to go into the Marley's Minions Facebook group, see your excitement, like the pictures that you're posting. You're like, I cannot believe I'm knitting. Like, I've tried for so many years. I've just decided I was just going to be a crocheter, but I saw that Marley was doing this. I'm like, okay, I'm going to give it a whirl. And now I'm knitting. Like, I have goosebumps. I don't know if you guys can see it. Like, I have goosebumps. Like, it is so exciting to me to have that excitement come through to you, because I know how much I appreciate being able to knit and crochet. I love doing both of the crafts. So knowing that you now have that ability is super exciting to me. Looks like you guys are here and super excited. Tia, while you're here, I am going to make you a moderator, my friend, so that way you can help me make sure we don't get any crazy stuff happening here in the chat room. Same thing with you, Marcia. I'm going to make you a moderator today, if that's all right. So that way you guys can lend me a hand. Oh, so many of you are loving boot camp and that you're learning new stitches. Isn't it amazing that you have all these stitches, right? We're learning new stitches, but really we're just learning how to combine knits and purls in a different manner, right? It's just knitting and purling. It's just so fascinating to me. Sylvie is excited. Cindy is excited that she gets to do lace. She loves lace. Beady Yarn Gal 83 says, I would like to call it a brick stitch. You know what, Beady? I considered it a brick stitch. The only reason I didn't call, and what Beady's talking about, she's talking about the extra credit right here. I didn't call it a brick stitch just because I didn't alternate where I slipped the stitches, but you could absolutely be right and call it a brick stitch. It's a variation of that, absolutely. Laura says that she's loving it. She's getting along really great. Joanne says hello from Grand Haven, Michigan. I mean, it's so delightful to see you guys here. Okay, so here we go. I'm going to dive in because today's lesson is not something that is so out of the ordinary or so far away from things that we've already done. We're just reiterating things that we've already learned, creating that muscle memory some more, and just making sure we're learning a new stitch, getting some new texture on our cowl. So that way we have something fun to wrap around our neck, or not wrap, just put around our neck this coming fall and winter, or if you're in fall and winter right now, wherever you are in the world, you get to wear it right away. Honestly, you guys, choosing these stitches for this particular cowl has been difficult as I'm going to call myself an expert knitter, because, you know, there are so many stitches that I'm fans of. Like I would have loved to add some tuck stitches, or love to add some cable stitches, or love to add some simple lace already to the project. But I was like, oh man, we're not there yet. We're not there yet. Like, I just want to like throw everything at you guys and get you going with it. But I'm like, no, Marley, you've got to keep them with the knits and purls and keep it exciting to where they're learning new textures. It's just little bite-sized sections that we're getting something fun into it. So I had to be very rigid with myself, because I was this close to throwing in there a tuck stitch for you guys, which is a really fun thing to do, especially if you're doing it with color work. That was actually the ultimate decision of me not adding it in to the cowl yet, is because most of us are just using one color. And I think tuck stitches look really good for the ones I wanted to do with two colors. So you might see those in the future, just a little bit, just a little FYI there for all of you. Let me just check out here. Lisa says, DPNs, not sure if it was a cable or DPNs. Sorry about that. I'm not sure what she's talking about that. Hello from the Netherlands. Hello there. Let's see here. I am behind too. That's all right if you're behind, guys. You can catch up. There's no, what did we talk about? There are no knitting police. There's no time limit. You can pick up this class right now in 2021, or pick it up in 2025, or better yet, when all of this comes together and becomes a full-blown course that you can actually purchase and buy on my website. It'll have a ton of stuff in it. So you'll have stuff available there. Carrie Benson says, ooh, tuck stitches. They're really cool. They're a fun way to get a different look in the fabric. All right, so it appears that everybody is ready to go. So we're just going to jump in and take a look down here at my work. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to mute this mic, turn on this mic, and hopefully that'll switch it to where you get full screen of the, my phone, actually. All right, so here we go. All right. I guess I better turn off my little microphone there. Let me know if you can hear me, and let me know if you are seeing my full screen down here with my hands. I'm pretty sure that's what you can see now. And this right here, ladies and gentlemen, this is my cowl. Super thrilled to be working on this. I was working on this last night as I was on a school bus, you guys. I was on a school bus on the way to a regional track meet, girls track meet. And first time I'd been on a school bus in years. Can I just tell you that my hips tend to be a little bit wider than they used to be the last time I was on a school bus. So it was quite interesting. But as I was working on this, I had a couple of the girls looking at it, be like, oh my gosh, that's so cool. What is it? You know, knitting looks so great, like pretty awesome. So this is just one of those fun little knits for me to do. And I don't know how big each section you guys did on yours. Obviously, I kept mine all about the same size, right? I'm very flexible with this, but I'm pleased with the size of each one so far. Now, having said that, you'll see that in this week's pattern, I did put in there that maybe the seersucker one, you repeat it like you do the total of 3 times. You would repeat it twice, giving you 3 times. And the same thing with the long slip texture stitch. Do you have to do it that many times? Absolutely not. You could do it as many times as you want for your cowl. Like whatever you guys want to do and makes you happy, you do that for yours. Okay. So here's mine. First thing I want to point out is when you're looking at the instructions, you're going to note that whether you ended with we'll call it the brick stitch. Okay, my friends, whether you ended with the extra credit brick stitch, or you ended with the double moss stitch, you might have a little extra work to do. So if you ended with the brick stitch, you know that you ended with 2 knit rounds, you're great, you're ready to move on to the seersucker. If you ended with the double moss like I did, I want you to do 2 rounds of knitting. So that way you have 2 rounds of knitting. So that way it kind of appears as if, not kind of, it makes it so that way you finish with 2 rounds after this section, and then we have 2 rounds of knitting after that section. It kind of just like balances it out a little bit. Okay, so that's the first thing I did. So you'll have 2 rounds of knitting if you ended with the double moss stitch like I did. Okay, and we're going to go right into seersucker. Now, seersucker, it's similar to this a little bit, and I debated whether I wanted to do the long slip stitch first or seersucker first. So if you want to switch them up, you can do that too. I wasn't sure which one I wanted to put first, and I went ahead and went with seersucker. But if you want to do the long slip texture one first, you can do that. But for the seersucker, let me pull up the pattern so that way I am saying things correctly. I just want to make sure that I'm saying exactly what I wrote down, so that way I'm not confusing anybody. All right, so essentially what we're going to do are the first 2 rounds, it's going to feel like ribbing. We're going to knit 1 and then purl 1. And then for rounds 3 and 4, we will end up purling 1 and then knitting 4. Okay, so let's go ahead and let's get our knit 1, purl 1 all the way around. So I'm going to just go like this, and I was playing with stitches here. That's why my stitch is twisted. I was trying to decide if I want to do that tuck stitch or not, and I was playing with it on my actual piece. So as I'm doing this, this is the part of the video where I wish somebody was here so they could help me chat and make sure that all the questions are getting answered, so on and so forth, right? The good news here is that this is something you guys already know, right? Knit 1, purl 1. It's like we're bringing it back to our roots. We're bringing it back to our ribbing with the knit 1, purl 1 for 2 rounds, all right? So it's gonna take me just a little bit to get through. If you're following along with me, feel free to grab your yarn and your knitting, I guess, all the way, and join in with me. And let's just get around these 140 stitches. If you're catching this on the replay and you want to fast forward through this knitting section until we get to round 3, you absolutely can. But overall, you guys, if you're looking at the pattern, hopefully you're getting more and more familiar with how to read patterns. You'll see on this one, I wrote it out to where it says rounds 1 and 2, and then you'll see an asterisk, that star. As crocheters, we're very familiar with the whole idea of the star, right? That we know that that's the point in the written instructions that we are going to come back to and begin to repeat. So for rounds 1 and 2, you'll see it has the asterisk, then it has knit 1 and then purl 1, and then repeat from star all the way to the end. So literally all that means is you're going to knit 1 stitch and purl that one, and then purl the next stitch all the way around. Hey, congratulations, you just read a knitting pattern without any trouble. When it changes is when we get to rounds 3 and 4, you'll see that it says purl 1, and then we're going to knit 3. So you're definitely going to have to pay attention to how the stitches are worked, because you get really comfortable and familiar with the whole knit one, purl one going around. And just like when we did the double moss stitch, we got comfortable with the knit 2, purl 2, you know, and changing it up every 2 rounds. The same idea here, every 2 rounds, this pattern changes up to get that seersucker look. And I want to reiterate again, if you decide after seeing this portion that you want to start off with the long slip texture first and then go to this, you could do that. Absolutely could do that. I'll just leave that up to you. Like I said, I mean, even still right now, I'm not sure which one I really want to do, but I'm just going with this one first. I mean, why not? I'm afraid that it might look a little bit too close to the double moss, but without actually working up, I won't know. So I'm just gonna go with it. We're just going to go with this, people. Going with this. All right, so as I'm working through all of these stitches, I'm gonna look up here and try and get a look at what's going on with you guys, because I can knit and purl without looking. Marcia is saying, type your questions, please, and we'll collect them. We'll try and answer them here as much as possible. Thank you guys very much. Hey guys, it's really quite easy. More than anything, you just got to make sure that we don't get any spammers coming in, because that sometimes happens. People just get bored throughout the day and they'll come in and try and spam some things. So that's the best thing about all of it. And I appreciate your help, ladies. After today's class, if you will email me, I will get you a free pattern for your help today. I would really like to do that, because I appreciate your help immensely. Diana Bottoms, I switched to my new Prim needles and I have not dropped a stitch since. They really grab the yarn. Oh, that's really good to hear, because these Prim needles, I'm really enjoying working with them. And I like the cord a lot. Like I was uncertain. How about that? I was uncertain about how much I was going to like the cord, and I really like it a lot. I enjoy the little, what did they call that? A bell shaped at the tip. It really helps grab the yarn. And I think as crocheters coming into knitting, that has been a big help, probably being able to just snag that yarn up, and maybe snag isn't the right word, but you understand what I'm saying. Just grab it and not let it fall off the needle. It makes it pretty nice, which is a really good segue to something that if you are signed up for the BiCrafty Bootcamp newsletter, which I think most of you are, and you can still sign up. If you have not signed up yet, you can still sign up, and I encourage you to do so, because you never know what you're going to get in those newsletters. They come directly from Chrissy, and every now and again, I pop in and give you guys either a coupon or a free gift or all that good stuff. So you want to make sure you sign up. You can do that on the main blog post for the BiCrafty Bootcamp. You'll see in the video description box below where it says, you know, it's not too late to sign up and join Bootcamp, and it gives like the main blog post link. You can absolutely use that to go and sign up to the newsletter link there. Anyways, those of you who got the, did I do that right? I must have messed up a knit or purl somewhere, because I started, oh, right there. Look, I started with 2 knits. So I'm just going to start with a purl. We're just going to go with that. I don't know how did I start with 2 knits? I don't know how I did that, but we're just going to keep going with it. So those of you who got it probably read on there that Chrissy has a prize for some Prim needles. And we were debating whether we wanted to give them away live here on today's video, or if we wanted to do it in the Facebook group. And because we know so many people are not able to join us live during the day like this, when it's at night, it's a little bit easier. But because of my schedule, I've been unable to get on here at night as much as I would like to. So having said that, you want to make sure you are part of the Marley's Minions Facebook group, because we are going to give details out in there. Chrissy is going to give details out in there for how you can win some Prim needles. Now, I understand some of you are anti-Facebook and don't want to be part of Facebook, but if you can make one exception for one group on Facebook, I will tell you that the Marley's Minions group is one of the most, I want to say, supportive and upbeat groups for knitting and crochet. We keep it very focused. We keep it very inspiring. We are blessed to have some amazing moderators and admin that help approve or not approve different messages that come through. So everything it goes through a filter. So we make sure that we are on task, on point, and that you're not allowed to be a jerk in there. I mean, that's just the way it goes. So we keep it as positive as possible because there is way too much negativity in the world, way too much angst and anger sometimes in our everyday life that sometimes you just want to get away. And it might not seem to you that Facebook is the place for something like that, but we really do try and keep our little place on the internet nice and happy. So there is that. So anyways, the Marley's Minions Facebook group is where you're going to want to go to find the information. Chrissy says she'll have it up later today for how you can win some Prim needles. Super excited and grateful that Prim has sponsored this month of the BiCrafty Bootcamp by supplying the entire team with Prim needles so that we could try them out and let you guys know how we feel knitting with them, what we think of them, and then offer you a chance to get some. Very blessed that they are a part of this team, especially since we really liked their needles to begin with. So it's nice to have them a part of it. Kimberly Johnson is saying that she loves the Marley's Minions group. She loves seeing all the projects on there and the encouragement that is shared. That is great because Kimberly, that's exactly my goal with that group. I cannot stand a bunch of negativity. I want to be able to go to a group and be inspired, you know, and just have a nice time. Feel like I'm in a relaxed, comfortable place because sometimes there's just too much stuff happening. Marley, how do I like the Prim needles? Mary Watson is asking me. Mary, so for myself, the Prim needles are a little bit slow for me, but you got to remember, I am an expert knitter, and so I'm used to going really fast. So they're a little bit slow. They have a little tiny bit of drag for me. Not so much so that I would never use them. Like, that's not it at all. I think they're absolutely perfect, especially for people who have trouble with stitches dropping off their needle, or if I were using a very slick yarn, so that way it grabs the yarn a little bit. I love this little tip, I don't know if you guys can see that, the little ball tip there. I think it is so nice because when I come in and wrap, it's so easy just to grab that yarn and pull it through with that little, like the little hook type tip at the front. I love that. I love the cord. I love the join. I also like how long the needle itself is. Like, it fits my hand really well. You guys know I have very large hands. And so the fact that the needle itself, like, it goes from right here where my thumb is to where my other thumb is. And it fits my hand very nicely. My stitches flow very great right over the join. Like, it's a very smooth join. I have not had any issues at all. You guys already know I've loved their double points. I think their ergonomic double points are very comfortable to knit with. I enjoyed using those when I was working on the this or that sweaters last year. And so that's when I became a fan of these needles. But overall, so that's my overall assessment. If I were to rate them like 1 out of 10, I would give them a 9 on my scale. And the only reason they don't get a 10 for me is just because they're a little bit slow. And it's not because they're bad. That's not it at all. It's just that for me and my knitting level, they're just a little bit slower than what I prefer. But would I use these again? Absolutely. Like, they're going in my regular rotation. I think they're very nice. They're very nice to work with. I'm enjoying them a lot. They also are going to be the top of my list when I'm teaching beginners, because I think these are so beginner friendly, so useful, and just easy they're just easy to use. So yeah, they're gonna go top of my list, which used to be bamboo needles. So these are gonna take the place of bamboo needles for me when it comes to teaching beginners, for sure. But yeah, I mean, they're very comfortable. I have really enjoyed these needles a lot. All right, so if you guys caught up on that, I did 2 rounds of knit one, purl one ribbing. Actually, it was like I did purl one, knit one, but regardless. So I'm just popping over one so I can start here. And the next part of the instructions, as I said, we're supposed to purl one and then knit 3. So this was knit one, purl one, purl one all the way around. So now we're supposed to purl 1, knit 3. So it's a 4-stitch repeat. So I'm going to purl on my knit right here, and then I'm going to knit 3. 1, 2, 3. Purl on my knit, and then knit 3. 1, 2, and 3. I'm going to do this for 2 rounds. So I'm just going to keep going and keep talking. Let me get back here to the chat. Let's see here. I got to think again. Knit 3 and then purl 1. Okay, purl 1 and then knit 3. Julie says, Marley may be the only reason I go to Facebook these days. Hey, you know what? Come on over. I try my best to, do as many of the social media areas that I possibly can. I'm not really into Snapchat, I'm sorry, and I don't have a TikTok, but when it comes to Instagram or Facebook or YouTube, I try and be as involved as I can right now. Jan says Prim's really helped fix her split stitch problem too. That's a very good point. And that's one that I hadn't really thought of. Somebody had mentioned before that with these needles, they weren't splitting the yarn very much. Whereas before with the other needles, whether they were metal needles or bamboo needles, they found that they were splitting their yarn quite often. But with this tip, and it's not like blunt, it's a little pointy. They aren't splitting their yarn very much. And I think that is a very good thing to recognize. Like it's something I hadn't thought about. So yeah, that's a good thing to point out as well. Let's see. Yes, the links for this week's week 9 instructions and for the entire, like the first blog post for all of this. It's in the video description box for sure. Diane is asking, okay, so she's answering somebody's question. It says, no, the triangle is not noticeable with the yarn on it. She's probably talking about the shape of the needle itself. The Prim needle is sort of, it's a triangle, and no, you can't really notice it. It really fits in your hands lovely, because the way your hands, it almost rests on one of the sides of the triangles, and then you come over here and it rests on the others. It feels really good. It feels really good. I can absolutely see why they call it ergonomic. And I mean, you guys who have followed me as crocheters know that I've been struggling a little bit with my crochet. I don't want to call it arthritis yet because it has not been diagnosed, but I get hand cramps quite often when I'm crocheting. So I've had to switch my crochet hooks so that I have a really large handle. And with my knitting, I haven't had any issues, but there are some times I cramp up a little, but as I was working on this cowl, I have not had any hand cramps. So take that for what it's worth. I don't know if it's the needles or not, but I have not had any at all. So that's good. Let's see here. Crafty Ferret Mama says, I love the Marley's Minions Facebook group. I do too. I do too. All right, so I'm getting through here. I'm trying to go as fast as I can, ladies and gentlemen. I know that this is just a lot of talking, but I mean, this is kind of the way it goes. If I wanted to just do like a small swatch, I could have, but I feel like you guys are here. You want to have a little bit of time together. Plus this helps you watching me knit and purl over a long period, and you can see how all of these stitches really work together as we are creating this fun stitch pattern. So again, this is called the Seersucker stitch pattern, and it really does. Did I do that right? Yeah, and I did another knit. It's a cool stitch pattern. I mean, it's really neat. I've seen it used quite a bit with like on garments as an accessory stitch. So it will sometimes just be like at the top around the yoke, or maybe just around the cuffs or even the bottom. I don't think I've seen a whole lot of stitch patterns for garments where it's all seersucker, but that doesn't mean there's none out there. This would be a really good stitch also for an accessory piece, like maybe you wanted to do What is that called? But it's not a scarf. Oh, so if maybe you wanted to make a scarf with just this stitch pattern, that would work out lovely as well. Because of the knit and purl combination, it should not curl on yourself. So it should come out really nice. It's a beautiful kind of unisex stitch pattern. It doesn't look very dainty or too masculine, if there is such a thing at all. I like it. It would make a very nice baby blanket as well. Maybe you wanted to do a baby blanket for somebody special in your life. A seersucker baby blanket would look really great on the needles also. If you were doing a seersucker baby blanket, the biggest thing there is that, or even a scarf back and forth, you'd have to change the pattern up from being in the round to being flat. You'd have to work it flat. So the biggest thing there is just think about, you know, you have your right side rows, you have your wrong side rows. And so you'd have to just switch it up and decide, okay, if I'm supposed to, like this would be the right side row, right? Because I'm supposed to purl there and then knit 3, but maybe the next one, I want to maintain the same stitch pattern, right? Because if this is rows 3 and 4, where I still want to purl on top of the purl, knit on top of the knits. But if I'm looking at the opposite side, because I've turned my work, I would be purling 3 and then knitting 1. You see what I mean? Just a little thing to pay attention to if you wanted to make this flat, but we're working in the round. And just a reminder here, as I come up, remember I jumped over 1 stitch for some reason. I probably had knit 1 stitch past my marker, so my marker didn't fall off and then just didn't see it. So you know what I'm going to do? I'm just going to move my marker because why not? All right, so see, now I'm back. So I need to go through this round one more time so that we can see what's happening here, but hopefully you can kind of get a little glimpse. I think adding, you know how we have the 2 rounds of knit after this section, and then I had you add 2 rounds of knit after the double moss. That'll add enough delineation between the stitch pattern and what we're doing with the seersucker. And then, like I said, on the stitch pattern itself on the blog, I did write this out that you would do this full, I think it's 8 rounds, repeat for a total of 3 times. You could just do it 2 times and make it work. You could do it 5 times. You could do whatever you want. Like say it's something that you really like. You do what works best for you. One thing that's great about the next round is you really don't have to think too much about it. You're going to knit your knits and purl your purls when you're in the round, right? Because it's just a repeat of what the previous round was. So if you see a purl, purl it. If you see a knit, knit it. So I'm just going to keep going around here. And let me see if I can peek up here. Let's see here. So many of you are here saying hello. Tiffany says, I'm behind on my homework, working on the seed stitch, but not working in the round, and got confused. So if you're not working in the round on seed stitch, the biggest thing to remember is when you're turning your work back and forth, you're going to do the opposite of what the stitch is on your needle. So as we've gone along through boot camp, I've talked a lot about reading your stitches. And remember, you always read your stitches as they're looking at you. You read it on your left-hand needle. So like right now, I'm looking at the stitch right here and I'm looking at a purl. So no, I'm going to purl it because for me, I'm knitting my knits and purling my purls when I'm on this particular round. When you're working seed stitch, every row or round is opposite what the stitch is that you are looking at. So if you're working back and forth in seed stitch, if you're looking at a knit, you purl it. If you're looking at a purl, you knit it. And that's the same thing as you're working in the round. You do the opposite. The good news is because we did a lot of seed stitch in one of the first knit alongs I did, one of the first shawl knit alongs I did, which by the way, you guys, you could totally make right now. And it's a fun knit along. It's a fun shawl pattern. It's made with Red Heart Soft. It's just nice pattern. You could totally work. You know all the stitches you need to know to make that, with the exception of the increases, but I show you how to do that in those videos. So as we were working on that, I did make a whole video on how to fix seed stitch. So if you happen to mess up in seed stitch, you could get it fixed without any issues. So I have a whole video on how to do that. Let's see here. Sylvie says, I can also read my stitches and I'm so happy about that. You know what, you guys? I think that is the biggest plus to learning the BiCrafty Bootcamp with me, especially because I really focus so much on reading your stitches, because I feel like that is one of the most important factors of learning to knit, is understanding what is happening on your fabric. Because the minute you can understand what is happening on your fabric, it allows you to problem solve, right? You need to understand what's going on. More often than not, if I'm like in an in-person class and somebody's like, I made a mistake, what did I do? I will unknit or undo what they've done to deconstruct what they've done so I understand how to fix it, because I understand how the stitches work and what they are supposed to look like. So I think that that is a very, very important aspect of all of this. All right, so I'm really curious how many of you are trying to keep up with me as I'm knitting around like this. I'm trying to go as fast as I can so you can get a good look at how this works, because I just want you to see at least a couple rounds, because I know you know how to knit and purl. I know you know how to do this. This is not new to you. It's just a new placement of your knit and purls to get this cool seersucker stitch, right? So I'm going to keep going here. I'm almost at the end of my round. And we'll take a look at the next couple rounds just to take a look at them. And then we're going to talk about the slip stitch pattern next. So that way I can get you guys on your way here. And I want to remind you, once you get through these 2 stitch patterns this week, next week is sort of like a relief week, right? It's going to be a sort of a relaxing time because we're going to go back to ribbing, and we're going to finish up with our ribbing. We'll bind off in pattern, which will actually, because we started with a round of knits, we'll end with some knits. But I'm going to show you a different bind off next week, just not one that you are going to use on your project, but I would just want to show you another bind off so that way you have another tool for your knitter's toolbox. And we will have a nice comfortable week, especially since it's a holiday week, a weekend here in America. All right, so it doesn't look like a whole lot happening right here yet, right? But you can see we have sort of this column of knits right here, and then they've been interrupted by these purls on either side. And then we're back to knits. So we're going to get a really cool sort of look happening. And then on the next 2 rounds, we go back to knit 1, purl 1, right? So when we go back to knit 1, purl 1, so let's look over here at this. I go back to knit 1, purl 1, knit 1, purl 1. It's going to continue this line right here, right? And then on round 7 and 8, we're going to do knit 2, and then we'll do purl 1 on this one, purl 1, and then knit 3. So what that will do is, for right now, see we have this column of knit stitches kind of coming up. So this is essentially rounds 1 through 4. It'll be the same column of knits for rounds 5 and 6. But then when we get to 7 and 8, we're going to have 2 purls that are going to be on top of this column. And it's going to be a really cool look, good variation. So that is the start of the seersucker. I really feel like you can continue on without any issues. All right. So let's talk about the slip stitch. Oh, before I do that, once you're done with your seersucker section, you'll see that it says last round. I want you to knit. Okay. That's just, I just want you to have that sort of delineation round there. I just want you to knit 1 round. Okay. And then you're going to jump into the slip stitch texture, long slip texture, which is really easy. Okay. We're going to essentially, it's very similar to like knit 1, purl 1, right? It'll be like knit 1, purl 1, knit 1, purl 1, knit 1, purl, but you're not going to purl. You're actually going to knit 1, slip 1 with yarn and back, and we can make a decision. So I'm skipping down to long slip texture. First 3 rounds are all the same. I'm not going to work all 3 rounds. I'm just going to show you how this works. So it says slip 1 with yarn and back. You can decide whether you want to slip as if to purl with yarn and back, or slip 1 as if to knit with yarn and back. You decide what you want to do. Okay. The difference here is the way the stitch gets twisted overall. I'm not going to tell you which way to do. You pick which one you want to do and then stick with it. So let's say I'll just do slip with as if to knit. So this is a slip as if to knit with yarn and back, and then it would be knit 1. and then slip as if to knit with yarn and back, and then it would be knit 1. Okay, so you would do that for 3 rounds. So essentially this stitch here and that stitch there are going to be elongated for 3 rounds, and then you knit 1 full round. On the following round, so I'm going to put these round, stitching which stitch you slipped. So on the first 3 rounds, we slipped this one and we knit that one. And then you did that for 3 rounds, and then you knit 1 full round. Then for rounds 5, 6, and 7, you're going to knit this one and slip this one. See how you're just alternating the 2? So you're going to get what looks very similar to a stockinette stitch fabric, but you're going to have these long these long slip stitches that look like an elongated knit stitch, varying back and forth between like these 2 stitches. So it's going to look really cool. It's really easy to do. You aren't going to have any issues whatsoever, I don't think. So I don't want to spend too much time on that, especially since you've already done slip stitches down here. What I would do is, however you chose to do your slip stitches down here, do those in the same manner up here when you get to the long slipped texture. And just like these here, you have that long knit stitch right there. And then that was your knit row or knit rounds. And then you have a long slip. It's going to look like that, only you're going to have, instead of this texture over here with the pearls, the reverse stockinette, they're going to be other knits. And then you'll have this texture like every other stitch, and it'll vary. It just looks really cool. So it's going to look nice. Still not sure if I should have done this long slip texture as this round or not. You decide. I'm actually curious what you guys decide for that. So let me open up my Zoom. I think you're now back to my face and you're seeing me and hearing me on my other microphone. So if you can give me a thumbs up just to make sure that we're all on the same page here, because I do want to make sure we're good. And let's see. All right. So I feel like we're pretty good here. I know that it pauses there ever so briefly just to get things going. All right. Thumbs up. What color yarn? The color yarn I am using is called Vineyard. It's from Chic Sheep. Chic Sheep yarn. And the color is called Vineyard. I like it a lot. I like it a lot. All right. So here's my question. Whether you're here watching live or you're catching the replay, I would love to know, what are you going to do? Are you going to do the seersucker stitch first, or are you going to do the long slip texture first? Because you really could do either one. Either one would look good in this pattern. You're already making this pattern your own. Why not decide which pattern you want to go first and go from there? I think it's going to look good either way. Take into account that your ribbing is going to go right after whichever one you choose to be the second. So maybe that affects the look you want to go for. I'm also going to throw this out there for those of you who are like not concerned about how much yarn you're using. Maybe you're really enjoying this cowl and you want it just a little bit bigger. One thing you could do if you wanted is like repeat all of the stitches that you've done, like do a whole nother section of repeat of all the different stitch patterns again, and just make a really big cowl. So like it would be like super long. But that's another thing you could do to make a fun cowl if you're interested in doing that at all. If you're like, you just can't get enough, you can't wait until the next lesson, you've got some time and you want to do it, that would be a fun thing to do. Really make this your own. Or you could start a second one and you could change colors for each of the different sections if you wanted to do that. I think Chrissy's doing that actually. Totally up to you. I didn't want to, make you have to buy more yarn if you didn't want to. And so, yeah, I don't know. It's pretty cool. So a lot of you are talking about that you ended with the extra credit. So you think you're going to start with the seersucker, which is perfect. I think that's a good idea. Some people say they're going to start with the slip stitch texture to give a separation between the double moss and the seersucker. I think that's a good idea. I don't think you can go wrong, whichever way you choose. So I am excited to see your projects, you guys. So as always, make sure you share with me on Instagram. Use hashtag MarleyBird and hashtag BiCrafty Bootcamp. And remember, Marley does not have an E in it. So it's MarleyBird. Okay, so Marley Bird. Join the Marley's Minions Facebook group if you have not already. Reminder for all of you who are going to try and sign up for the Marley's Minions, you have to answer all of the questions. Remember when I talked about the admin and the moderators? Well, they really go through the people who apply to get into the group, because we do get a lot of people who try and come in and spam. And one of the first things that we do, which is an automatic no, is if you don't answer the questions, and you have to answer all of the questions. So if you're like, I've applied before, I can't get in, my question to you would be, have you answered all of the questions? You need to make sure you do that. Last but not least, if you are not already signed up for the BiCrafty Bootcamp newsletter, don't forget to do that. You'll find a link in the main blog post that's on my website. It's like a sticky post on my blog. It's linked in the video description box below. So make sure you sign up for the BiCrafty newsletter. And yeah, we're going to say thank you to Prim Needles, who are giving away a set of Prim Needles. At least I'm not sure if it's one set, two sets. I'm not sure. Chrissy has all of that information. She is your goody gal. Your goody gal. She's the one that has all the goodies and knows everything that's happening. So you want to make sure to keep an eye out for Chrissy's post in the Marley's Minions Facebook group for a chance to win some Prim Needles. Until then, you guys, make sure you share with me on social media. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day, and I'll talk to you again very, very soon. All right. So many of you are here and saying, don't forget to smash that like button. Thank you.